Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Draft Nerds Podcast. This is the first episode with the CFB Nation merger with Draft Nerds and CFB Nation. Today, my wingman, just as he is in spaces on Twitter, my guy, Mr. Bill Carroll. You know, welcome to Draft Nerds, Mr. Bill. I call him Bill, not a draft guy, man. He knows so much. I always say that. Look, I thought I knew a lot about football, Bill, but you've probably forgotten more than I know. So, thank you for doing the podcast today, and man, I can't wait to go through some of these topics with you. Bill, for those who don't know who you are, who don't have Twitter or whatever, why don't you
Right.
go and give them a brief synopsis of who
Sure.
you are?
So I developed an obsession with this game very early on. My father, who was at that time a student in a PhD program at University of North Carolina, took me on my third birthday to a football game, NC State versus UNC. And I watched Don McCauley, who was 6 feet, 214 pounds, an Ohio native of all places, comes to Carolina, sets all the records, later broken by famous Amos Lawrence, but sets all the records, goes nuts on NC State, and I was transfixed as a 3-year-old. Watched the whole game, stared at it, right, like I've been suddenly struck by a bolt of lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Never got over it, right? From age 3 to now, football gets my attention no matter what. By the time I was in high school, I'd already started writing in addition to my school newspaper, but also for a community newspaper that was owned by a man named James Mims, who was a former editor at the Norfolk Journal and Guide. Behind me is the campus of Knox State University, where I also wrote for the Spartan Echo, and technically speaking, was a student athlete. We dropped our wrestling program, not just because of me, but I wrestled there and then attempted to play football, walked on, and then later walked off the football program there. But I was able to serve my nation, and after that, go to the University of Illinois, got a graduate assistantship, got to meet, amongst other people, Coach Lou Tepper, who, if you want to know anything about linebacker play, there's a great book called The Complete Linebacker written by Lou Tepper, former coach there, was defensive coordinator there under John Makovic, then later the head coach at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Brilliant about linebackers. Learned so much from him. And then the internet comes along. There's a gap there where I'm just writing in my notebooks. I have notebooks full of notes about players, but there's no internet yet, really. I mean, so it just sits there in my notebooks. But in about the mid 1990s, the old BBS services roll out.
Mm-hmm.
There was one called the War Room, and that's where I first ran across Todd McShay. He was an assistant of a man who ran the War Room, who himself was the guy that ran it was an old NFL scout who'd worked for the 49ers.
Okay.
So I just started writing for whoever I wanted me to write for them. Eventually, I landed at Consensus Draft Services, where I started as just a poster, then got brought on as paid staff, then eventually ended up running it when Steve, our founder, decided to live a normal life and not obsess over football anymore. Who apparently is just a healthy thing to do. I guess you do other stuff. But I haven't been able to do that. Now I write for Team MBS Media, and I'm also a contributor as a vlogger for Zenny 62 Media. And also I'm a special contributor to Around the Block Sports. And I guess a super, super special contributor to the All-Time Misfits podcast every once in a while when they want to talk about like Black football history and HBCUs and stuff like that.
All right. And Bill, where can people follow you on social media? How do they follow you and stuff like that?
Sure. Most of my work, and especially if you're interested in stuff about Black football history, you can either find on Team MBS Media. I'm running a whole series of articles about people who helped integrate the NFL, people who helped to innovate in terms of things about the NFL or things about football, college football as well. The first, HBCU game, coaches that changed the world of football, like Jake the Snake Gaither. You'll see all that stuff there. And then my normal football stuff about the draft is also there.
Okay.
And then, like I said, occasionally I'll do something like super long form stuff that we can't really do on Nuts and Bolts because it's shorter articles. I'll do for Around the Block. I did a thing about the history of Blacks in professional wrestling for Around the Block Sports. it's stupid long. So if you don't like stupid long, don't bother clicking on it. But if you want to see a very, very complete history, maybe too complete, probably should have been a book. That's the place to go for that. But yeah, and then at 11, so ELEVEMBRAVO 138. Or if you want to go to my sort of not quite so content heavy, so I do like less serious content on my at B Carroll at capital B capital C ARROLL 138. So two, no waiting, just like if you have multiple chairs at the barbershop. You don't have to wait.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Bill, so much. As you can see, y'all, Bill has his hands in a lot of things. He's been pulled in a lot of directions because he is a wealth of knowledge, right? This is how me and Bill became friends. He popped in one of my spaces about a year and a half ago, and you can tell the difference between a pretender and a person who's legit knows what they're talking about. And the more I listened to Bill, I was like, this man knows what he's talking about. We became friends, real respect, real, and knowledge respects knowledge. So, thank you, Bill, for being on here, and I appreciate you. And let's jump into my mock draft, Draft Nerds mock draft 1.0. So, as a teaser, I put out the mock draft on Twitter this week to let everybody, digest it, take it all in, chew on it a little bit. And now today I'm going to talk about it with some input from my man Bill here. And so let's just jump right into it, right? Let's start right at the top.
Right at the top.
Bing, 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 bing. We have a trade. The Indianapolis Colts trade up to the number 1 spot. I mean, we're hearing it everywhere. The Chicago Bears, have put out a for sale sign for the number 1 overall pick, right? Bill, you live in Chicago. You got boots on the ground. Know that
Brian
number
Poles,
1 pick is for sale.
Yeah, he has been not at all subtle about letting people know that his phone is available. He's waiting to field offers, and he's getting offers. I mean, I'm hearing through back channels that 2 or 3 teams have already inquired. And he hasn't heard the offer he wants yet, but if somebody, as we get closer and closer, those offers will get better.
All right. So the Colts trade up to the number 1 spot, and with the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft Nerds mock draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Bryce Young. Now, this is very interesting because there was news that came out today that it is expected for Bryce Young to measure in at 5'10". There's many who believed he was 6 feet, 5'11"-ish. He is 5'10" and some change. And so really quick, Bill, tell me, the 5'10", the slender frame, does that impact the way you felt about him before now?
Well, it didn't, because I have eyes, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd seen him, like if somehow he'd been playing like in a box where I could only see like the outline or something, I'd be like, that I made. But no, I'd seen him. I saw him in high school, and then I saw him in college. So he's exactly who I thought he was. Right. And my comp for him is sort of like a combination of Lynn Dawson. I know it's a million years old, but he really does remind me a lot of Lynn Dawson with a little bit of Doug Flutie sprinkled in, like he moved around a little bit. And he's super smart. He understands football. He can throw with anticipation. He's going to be fine. Right. You're going to have to, all the stuff I said before, you have to have a strong, center guard combination. Right. You can't skimp. You may have to spend a little more, in terms of either draft capital or free agent or whatever it is on that combination you would in a quote unquote normal quarterback situation if a guy's 6'2", 6'3" and up. Okay. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Because you saw the Saints do the same thing with Drew Brees. Yeah, absolutely. They said, we're going to spend a little more than we normally would on these 3 positions, our left and right guard and our center position that we normally would, because we have a quarterback who, is mostly winning from the pocket and is a smaller guy. And he's even smaller, obviously, than Brees. Well, he's not that much smaller than Brees. I mean, she's a little shorter, but Brees also was a guy that not exactly rocked up. No. So he came in at 194, which is exactly expected as well. He's trying to get to 210. I don't think he's going to get there. He doesn't have really the frame to get to 210. I'll be happy if he gets to 200, 201. Gotcha. I think that's the aim, the target, 200, mm-hmm. right? If he gets to 201, wonderful. I don't think 210's in the card. He's not 210 good weight.
Yeah, his body frame isn't big enough to hold that. At least not and allow him to continue to be the special player that he is. Correct. So let's talk about the fit really quick. Bryce Young, Indianapolis Colts. Do you like the fit? And then after you, I'll give you why I like the fit and why I like the pick.
Well, here's what I know. I think they've learned their lesson from what happened to Andrew Luck. And they said, never again. We will never again hang a quarterback out to dry, no matter how talented they are, no matter how physically gifted they are. We're going to do everything possible to put them in the best possible situation.
Right.
I truly believe that both in the draft and in free agency, they're going to do everything possible to build a wall around him. Mm-hmm. So he's going to get top flight protection, particularly once again, right in that middle.
Right. And they already got Quentin Nelson already in place. So they got some pieces. Like you said, they're going to have to continue to build that interior to keep him protected. But I love the fit, like you said, because the Band-Aid, the Band-Aid approach cannot be anymore, right? Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, Matt Ryan. I mean, you're just spinning your wheels, and it's the same thing, lather, rinse, repeat, right? And now you have to invest, right? And I think Andrew Luck retiring early kind of took the team by surprise. They weren't sure which route they wanted to take. They had spent all these years and resources building this team around Andrew Luck, and then poof, he's gone. Yep. And now it's time to start over. Indianapolis Colts fans, it is time to turn the page to a young franchise signal caller. You've had the great luck of drafting Peyton Manning and then Andrew Luck, and now hopefully Bryce Young can mean you've hit on 3 number 1 overall draft pick quarterbacks, and to be able to take you into the next 10 years of your franchise and whatever that looks like for the Indianapolis Colts, right? Number 2, we got Jalen Carter going to the Houston Texans. Here's why I like that pick and why I chose it. They just hired a defensive head coach, right? DeMeco Ryans is the new head coach of the Houston Texans.
Yep.
He just came from San Francisco, where the reason he got hired is because of how good that defense was. Most head coaches want to build a team in their own image. I know it's exciting for fans to think about wide receivers and running backs and all of these offensive playmakers, but if you think about the way San Francisco was constructed, they built the defense first. Most of the resources went to the defense, and then they put an offense together that can complement that defense. And Jalen Carter, to me, there's not too many players that I consider generational, right? And you've acknowledged that word generational gets thrown around way too loosely. But I think Jalen Carter is a generational interior defensive lineman. He was on that defensive line at Georgia with Jordan Davis. He was on that defensive line with what's the kid that went number 1 overall last year, Bill? Trayvon Walker, Nolan Smith, you name it. I mean, he was surrounded by first-round NFL talent, and you could go ask any scout, any person who worked for that Georgia University football team. They would tell you Jalen Carter was the best player on that defensive line. And so this is a foundational piece. This is the perfect place to start. I always believe in building your franchise, building your team inside out, right? Some teams have tried outside in. My team, the Ravens, as you can see, they've taken the outside in approach. But when they were really, really good winning championships, they went inside out. So this is a perfect scenario for them to be able to go and get that foundational piece at number 2. And then we go to number 3, Arizona Cardinals. They need everything.
Yep.
They need everything, including a quarterback for the first half of the season, because Kyler Murray may miss the first half of the season. But I'm going to go Will Anderson at number 3 from outside linebacker from Alabama.
Yep.
And so tell me, how do you picture the Arizona Cardinals utilizing Will Anderson? How do you think that could fit?
they're going to say, see that guy who gets the snap on every play? Go get him.
Love it. Love
I
it.
think they'll keep it pretty simple. Put that at first. I think that eventually once again, learning a lesson. I think they learned their lesson from the Hassan Reddick debacle. Maybe debacle is the stronger word, but they decided to treat Hassan Reddick like a real will linebacker. You know, they had him doing all these will linebacker things, and if they just said, "Go get the quarterback," they would have had a guy that might have been defensive rookie of the year, and instead they had his head swimming, learning, you know, a bunch of different coverage responsibilities and run fits, and now we see once he goes to the Eagles, where they simplified it for him, look at what he's become. I think that they've learned their lesson. We just talked about teams learning their lesson. Hey, you don't have to know everything about our defense. You don't have to know everything about all the responsibilities. We're going to put you in on all the third down and, you know, sort of third and four and ups. And if it turns out they run it, you're a smart kid. You know, you'll remember what we said about run fits, but we're putting you out there to go get quarterbacks. That's what God made him to do. I mean, you look at that young man. Just look at him. Look at him.
Right. He's incredible.
He looks exact. It's like when like I said, we talked about when God said, "I'm going to make an X receiver," and then Calvin Johnson, da-da. It's sort of like that. You know, hey, could you make us a pass rusher so we can know what they're supposed to look like? Da-da. This is your prototype. So yes, I think they're going to be smart.
And then they also, you spoke of the Eagles. They actually have the Eagles defensive coordinator as their head coach. So he'll be able to figure out
further makes me feel like
to utilize him.
Yep, they're going to say, we're going to keep it simple. You're going to be a DPR, you know, designated pass rusher most of the time at first. Go get quarterbacks.
Now let's talk about this is the part of the mock draft bill where Twitter implodes. You know, people start adding me.
The world on fire at this point.
You know, they start telling me, they start using phrases like "you don't know ball" and things like that. But this is where I have the Las Vegas Raiders trading up. I have the Las Vegas Raiders trading up and going to get Will Levis. I know there's some people that's low on Levis, or they have a problem with the 2022 tape. But if you go back and watch his film from 2021, the kid did a lot of good things. And Bill, we just had a conversation about Will Levis a couple of days ago on Twitter Spaces. A 6'3", 230-pound quarterback. 4 years, played 4 years in college. He could have came out last year when all of his weapons and when his offensive line, you know, left. He could have left, and he probably would have been a high pick in last year's draft. But he went back to school. He had a QB rating of 99.6, threw for 2,400 yards, had a completion percentage of 65.4, 19 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. And the thing I do like about him is traits, right? He has athletic traits. He's tough as nails. He is pretty fast for a guy his size. He's going to run well at the combine. I believe he's going to test well at the combine. He's probably got the strongest arm in the whole entire draft. I would give it between him and Anthony Richardson. But like he can make every throw on the field. The things that you see with Levis is mechanics. It's things that need to be coached. And I think Josh McDaniels is going to have enough of that arrogance, right? That coach's arrogance that believes that I can fix this guy. I can draft him. I'm going to put him in my system. I'm going to surround him with Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller. And I'm going to get some offensive line pieces and put in front of him. In this case, it's going to go on to win me the Super Bowl. Right?
Just fine.
He has every bit of ability as a Josh Allen coming up. I mean, obviously, Josh Allen is a little bit better athlete, but he's got every bit of the arm. He's got athletic ability. He's got all the tools. But just like Josh Allen, he has to land in the right situation. What say you about the fit, Las Vegas, you know, and Will Levis? What do you think about that?
the good news is he was never seen this kind of talent in terms of targets to throw the ball.
Absolutely.
If Waller is healthy, they're going to move on apparently from Josh Jacobs. But as we've said a million times before, NFL teams feel like that's a very replaceable position. They'll draft a running back. Then if Hunter Renfrow is also healthy, they had a lot of injuries this past year. But if they're able to trot out their starters most of the season, he's never seen talent like this to throw to. No offense to Wan'Dale Robinson, but Wan'Dale is not the same.
Devontae Adams.
Not Devontae Adams.
Not even close.
He's a little closer to even Hunter Renfrow. Faster, but not quite the route runner. But
right.
That's probably more what he is. He's probably more like that than he is like anybody, that vaguely resembles. Yeah. So they've got off the charts talent for him to throw the ball to. And there's some things he's going to need to work on, but young quarterbacks always need to work on their decision making, always need to work on seeing ahead of their throws and touch and anticipation. He needs to improve in all of those areas. It just comes down to the coaching. Now, you just talked about, coaches that have that little bit of arrogance. Josh McDaniels is like the very definition of coaching arrogance. So, yes, I could definitely see him saying I can fix that.
Yes, he absolutely will. And then they probably will lose Josh Jacobs, but Las Vegas fans, you're in luck. This draft happens to have the running back position happens to be the deepest position in this entire draft. So let's go down to why people would be criticizing me about the Will Levis pick at number 4. And let's go down to number 9, the Carolina Panthers taking CJ Stroud. So as you notice, I'm having in this draft, I'm having teams that have identified the quarterback position as a need moving up, right? So I had the Raiders saying, you know what, we're not going to stay put. We're going to go up. We're going to get the quarterback. We'll get Will Levis. All right. The Colts went up and said, we're not messing around. We're going to go get Bryce Young. And I have Carolina going up a couple of spots and securing CJ Stroud at number 9. When people ask me about this, how do you have Levis going to hit a Stroud? So here's the thing. This is not a ranking system. This is why I want everyone out there to understand. Mock drafts, right, where you project people to go isn't based on where you have them ranked, right? So just because I have Will Levis going number 4 doesn't mean I think he's the number 4 rated player in this draft, right? Doesn't mean I think he's a better player than CJ Stroud. It just means that I believe, based on team fits and team DNA, like you always speak about in Spaces, Bill, I think Stroud fits Las Vegas better.
Sure.
And knowing Las Vegas nature, they play in Vegas, right? They have to have that face of the franchise. They need that guy. Will Levis is the perfect fit. CJ Stroud falls into the perfect situation with Frank Wright in Carolina. He's put together a heck of a staff down there. And now CJ Stroud gets to go and play with the receiver DJ Moore from Maryland, right? From my neck of the woods. He goes and plays with DJ Moore. He gets to go and play with some of the weapons that they do have down there. They put together a pretty good offensive line. Ike Ekwonu went there last year. They did trade Christian McCaffrey. So again, this is a great draft to get a running back. But how do you like the fit CJ Stroud, Carolina Panthers?
Well, the good news, as you said, is they're going to surround him. It's not quite a perfect situation, but it's a good situation. They're going to continue to build. There's not really any competition. Let me rephrase that. He may not start day 1, but it's pretty clear from when you look at the depth chart at the quarterback position that he's going to be the man sooner rather than later. Even if they hold on to, I guess they could hold on to Darnold, at least theoretically, for a while as a bridge, but I don't think anyone believes that Darnold is the answer there. Right. And I'm certain that they don't, because, whether or not they move up to get him or stay there and get Richardson or Levis, they're taking a quarterback early.
Right.
And they haven't even really tried to hide it. So, right. So one of them's going there. And if they do get a shot at Stroud, I think they'll be thrilled to see him there.
Okay. Okay. And then as you can see, at 11, I have well at 10, I had Brian Brees going to Philadelphia. Lord Jesus. Imagine playing in the Super Bowl and then you have a top 10 pick in the following draft. I mean,
Right.
the luxuries, right? The rich get richer. At 11, I got Pete Skoronsky going to the Tennessee Titans. Um, and now number 12. This is where everyone's eyebrows raise up and they say the Houston Texans did what? Yes, the Houston Texans select Anthony Richardson, quarterback, University of Florida. Um, what do you think about the fit?
Well, once again, when a team feels like they aren't going to go where they otherwise would go because of the quarterback position, you have to address it.
Mm-hmm.
They have other needs also. I mean, you know, you don't pick towards the top of the draft if you don't have needs.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see them addressing this need here and now. And they do have a decent bridge situation. Like he doesn't have to play right away. That's probably the most important thing because I don't think
he's ready.
That would not be in the best interest of either him or the team that drafts him. He should definitely sit for a while. He has the opportunity to sit for a while.
Yep. Yep. I absolutely like the situation. I think they can afford to be patient with him because they have a new coaching staff. They can bring him in and allow him to develop with the new coaches that they put together. I know a lot of Ravens fans wanted the offensive coordinator that is now in Houston, which is what is his name? Bill from San Francisco.
Hold on, too.
What is his name?
What exactly you're talking about? Hold on.
They just hired him.
Yes. Hold on.
I got you. Texans. It is Bobby Slowick. Yeah,
Slowick.
Yeah. Bobby
He was
Slowick.
he was a hot property this past this offseason. A lot of people wanted Bobby Slowick.
Yeah.
Another second generation coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his father was maybe legendary is slightly strong word, but definitely a highly respected offensive line coach for a couple of decades in the NFL.
Absolutely. I mean, and then I love Anthony Richardson potentially going into a Shanahan system. A lot of play action, a lot of easy throws, right? Ability to be able to get out on the edge and use that athleticism. And he's going to have a heck of a running game because that's what the Shanahans do, right? They run the football. That system is predicated. I actually did some stuff on Jamal Lewis yesterday. And I was looking up, Jamal Lewis's rookie rushing stats, and he finished second in rookie rushing that year to Mike Anderson, who was no one knew who Mike Anderson was. He goes to Denver, they plug him in, and he rushes for over 1,200 yards. Right. And that system can do that, right? And they have a really talented runner in Dameon Pierce, who showed a lot this year. Had him on my fantasy team, and he played really well. So I think when they can get those guys going, a nice young nucleus of Anthony Richardson and Dameon Pierce, and then they also they got a decent offensive line. They need to keep building it, right? Get some weapons. They did get John Mechie, who didn't play last year because of recovery from cancer. Go out and add some more pieces to that receiver room, and which they have plenty of draft capital to do so. I think this could be a quick turnaround. I remember they already got Jalen Carter with the first pick of this draft. They got my favorite player from last year's draft in Derek Stingley. I was the president of the Derek Stingley fan club.
You definitely were.
I was driving it, man, and I was so naive to think that he was actually going to last to 14 to go to the Ravens, and he went number 3. And so they got, and then your boy Jalen Petrie. I mean, they have a lot of good stuff going on in Houston. So Houston Texans fans, have no fear. Don't be sad. Your future is looking very, very bright. Now, the New York Jets, I got them going getting Paris Johnson from Ohio State, left tackle. They need to solidify that line. They ended up having to go out and pick up guys off the streets last year because they just couldn't keep the left tackle healthy, right? Mekhi Becton got hurt in, I think, training camp, and then they get the who's the guy they got from Seattle?
Oh,
was it Dwayne? what's his name? He wasn't on Seattle last year. I mean the year before. I think he was in Houston for a year.
Brown.
Yes.
Brown.
Yeah, Brown. Yep. So they had him come in and try to pitch hit for the season. Get the young guy, get Paris Johnson. They also are going to get the kid from USC they got last year.
Yeah.
The guard.
Yeah, I know you're talking about Elijah. I mean
Elijah
no,
Vera Tucker.
Vera Tucker. Yeah.
Yeah, Elijah Vera Tucker. So they have you have Paris Johnson, Elijah Vera Tucker. You'll have they got another good young interior offensive lineman there. And I think they got some pieces, man. They can continue to build. I think they're going to probably end up with Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers. So going to get a vet, going to get a statue guy that's going to sit in the pocket, get him some protection. New England, DNA, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, New England, we all share the same DNA like you always talk about. And they go get Cam Smith. I think Cam Smith just screams Patriot to me. He's not going to be the biggest name in the draft. He's not going to be the flashiest, but they identify certain guys that they feel like, the Patriot way. And I think Cam Smith fits that. Michael Mayer, the tight end to Green Bay, number 15. Then we go Broderick Jones, another Georgia offensive lineman to the Washington Commanders, who seem to be all in on Sam Howell. And then we go to your team, Bill. Pittsburgh Steelers at 17. They talk about DNA. Joey Porter Jr. Give me your thoughts on Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah,
really
well,
quick.
That's literally some DNA there. So, I mean, there's a lot to like. He's a long corner. He's a kid with a big frame. Some people think he might eventually find his way to safety. I mean, maybe eventually, but he's clearly a corner. He can do everything, almost everything that you want. He doesn't have the world's best, like change of direction. That's the only thing that worries me a little bit. He's a little slow to change because of his height. He doesn't change direction incredibly quickly. Gets a little grabby at the top, where the action happens. He'll need to clean that up a little bit, but he's got length and strength. He's got decent ball skills, maybe not elite, but above average ball skills. And he can read, he can see things. He's a guy that has a pretty good football IQ. So there's a lot to work with.
Okay. So you like the fit, Joey Porter Jr., Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, the Steelers definitely, now I think they're going to go offensive line, but they could definitely use corners.
Okay. The need is definitely there. Then at 18, I go Collegiate Canty. Speaking of Pitt, interior defensive lineman to Detroit, continue to build that young nucleus of talent over there, fighting Dan Campbell's. We go Keon White, edge rusher from Georgia Tech to Tampa at 19. And then 20, we got Osiris Torrance to round out the top 20 going to Seattle. What do you think about those guys I just mentioned?
Well, I mean, I like a lot of them, obviously.
Anything stands out to you?
I mean, like I said, the main thing is people are going to and will probably continue to question the whole, Levis going ahead of Stroud thing. I mean, Stroud is a lot of people's, 2 and even a few people's 1 on their quarterback board. But as you just pointed out, he's exactly the kind of guy that someone can fall in love with during the process because of his, tremendous ability to just throw a football. I mean, he can throw a football really, really, really far, really hard. And somebody's going to like that. Will they like it enough to go that high up? Maybe, maybe not. But he's not making it too far down.
Then we're going to go to pick 21 and 22. Chargers, I have taken Christian Gonzalez. Many people don't think Christian Gonzalez will last that long. I particularly don't think either. I don't think he will either, but stranger things have happened. Again, I don't feel like Christian Gonzalez is my number 1 corner in this draft, but I also don't feel like this draft is going to be based on rankings, right? It's going to be based on fit. It's going to be based on flavor. All of these corners are really good, and they have really unique skill sets. And I think teams are going to identify what flavor they like, and they're going to go after that flavor. So I think Christian Gonzalez falling to the Chargers. I mean, they didn't necessarily get what they wanted last year. out of the guy they got from the Patriots. What's his name? The corner from the Patriots that went to
Oh,
the
you're
Chargers.
talking about Gilmore?
No, no, no,
No,
no, no,
no,
no,
the
no.
other one.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm blanking on these players today, but
Let's see. Hold on. There's JC. No, JC is still Jackson's still where he.
no, it's J.C. Jackson. That's what it is.
It's JC Jackson. Okay,
Yeah.
JC.
So J.C. Jackson went to the Chargers. To the Chargers. He got
That's right.
injured. It didn't quite
That's
turn
right.
out to what they wanted. Even with Asante Samuel, I still think Christian Gonzalez would be a great pick for them. Number 22, my Baltimore Ravens select Zay Flowers, wide receiver from Boston College. He is my number 2 wide receiver on my board, right? Number 1 is Jordan Addison, but I think Zay Flowers is he's my number 2 guy. Could even climb up to number 1 based on the combine, which we will talk about in a little bit.
Yep.
He does everything well, right? Is he the biggest guy? Absolutely not. But he runs really great routes, right? He runs really, really great routes. He's going to be what, 5'9-ish, 5'10. I think he came in at 5'10 at the Shrine Bowl. So if he's 5'10, he's probably going to run somewhere in the 4.3. Would you agree?
Yep.
He's probably going to run somewhere.
I think he's somewhere in that 4.43 to 4.38 range. Yep.
Got you. So he's going to probably run somewhere in 4.3, and he runs really good routes. He is what I like to call a small receiver who plays big. Now, one of my pet peeves is a big receiver who plays small. He is the opposite of that, and he is a guy that I really like. And I know a lot of my Ravens flock, they probably laughing at this because they know my affection and my feelings for Zay Flowers, and I just absolutely love the fit with the Ravens. Moving on to pick 23, I got Emmanuel Forbes going to the Minnesota Vikings at 24. We get through this. I got Brian Branch, the safety from Alabama, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, continuing to just add talent to that young football team. At 25, there he is, my number 1 wide receiver, Jordan Addison, going to the New York Giants, whom, Lord, they need wide receivers really bad. There's a couple of teams in this draft that really need wide receivers. The New York Giants, the Baltimore Ravens, and what's the other team that really needs? It was the Ravens, the Giants, and what's another team that really just needs wide receivers? I know the Cowboys could use another one, but the Ravens and the Giants really need those wide receivers.
Sure.
Number 26, staying in the state of Texas, Bijan Robinson going to Texas to replace whether it be Zeke or rather it be I know Pollard's a free agent, correct?
Yeah, but so you're right. One of those is
right.
gone.
So one of those are gone. So Bijan Robinson to Dallas, to me, plug and play. You put him behind Dak Prescott, and I think he kind of elevates that offense. They do need another wide receiver, but I think Bijan Robinson can give them a little bit of everything and really elevate that offense. Number 27, the Buffalo Bills go with Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Then we got here's a funny one. At 28, the Cincinnati Bengals take Luke Musgrave. Absolutely freaky tight end. But here's the thing. It just got reported today that his uncle, is it Bill Musgrave?
Oh, well, yeah. I've told you months ago that his uncle, Bill Musgrave, the longtime offensive coordinator and former head coach in collegiate level, and of course a quarterback himself at Oregon State and a backup with a bunch of NFL teams, including the Falcons. But yes.
But here's the funny part. He just got hired by the Cleveland Browns today.
Yeah, he just got a job with.
So the uncle goes into the division in the same state of Ohio with Cleveland, and then the nephew gets drafted to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Musgraves are coming to Ohio, ladies and gentlemen. Then we have Jackson Smith and Jigba going 29 to the New Orleans Saints, going down there with his buddy Chris Olave, bringing some of that Ohio State flavor to the Big Easy. Is it the Big Easy with New Orleans?
Yes, that's the Big Easy.
That's the Big Easy. I always get them in New York mixed up. New York is the Big Apple. All right, Quentin Johnston, I have going at number 30 to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, you know how I feel about Quentin Johnston. I don't think he's a body catcher, and he doesn't run great routes, but he's a freaky athlete, and I think that he's going to need some work. But if there was a place that he could go that would put him on the fast track to success, it is the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And then I close out the first round with safety Antonio Johnson going to the Philadelphia Eagles out of Texas A&M. So out of the picks, 31 picks, anything that stands out to you, something that made you perk up or
Well, I know that you're not a big fan of Quentin Johnston. I will bet you $1 to a donut he doesn't last as long as you have him last.
Okay, what do you think he'll go?
I think he's somewhere in the. I think he doesn't make it past probably the mid-teens. I think that he could go earlier than that. I mean, if he goes out and just goes nuts at the combine, he can go even earlier. But if he has a expected performance, I think he goes somewhere in the mid-teens.
Okay. All right. Now, since we're talking about draft, I need you to give me 2 sleepers going into this weekend's NFL Combine. Who are some sleepers that people should be looking at?
Sure. Always a pleasure. Every year we comb through and say, oh, and there's even some guys who should be there who aren't, like Jackson Player, but that's a whole other story. Like, but just looking at those that got invited, I'm always going to ride obviously for Jake Haener. That's my guy, one of my guys, and I feel like whether or not people are blown away by his pure physical ability, you're going to see coaching staffs warm up to him when they put him on the board, when they talk to him about football. They realize, man, this guy knows the game. And they will go back and watch the tape and see just how well he navigates the pocket, how he hangs in there and is completely, I don't want to say unaffected, but is less affected by pressure than most, including some guys that are rated way ahead of him.
Jake Haener, Fresno, baby.
Yeah, he really handles pressure better than
he really did well at the Senior Bowl as well. He really he performed well at the Senior Bowl. I love Jake Haener. Big fan, of Jake Haener. We share a lot of guys that we like.
We like the same guys, yes.
Yep. Give us another one.
I'll give you another one. So sort of the other end of the spectrum, because as opposed to being a guy who's this incredibly, sort of middling physical talent, who's making up for it with his intangibles. This is someone with great tangibles who has to work on some of the other stuff. But I think one of the things that I would throw out is, so Reshad Wright, of course, is the younger brother of Nahshon Wright. Okay. And he's tall, right? Like all the Wright brothers, not the Flying Wright brothers, but the Oregon State Wright brothers. Oregon State, well represented at the combine.
Mm-hmm.
But some teams are just going to love the length. He's going to be one of the longer corners there. My only concern is what time he's going to run. Should he go out and run, I think best case scenario, if everything goes perfectly, he could run, say, like best day was like 4.46. Unlikely to run that. I think he's going to run probably like 4.52. And for some people that says zone as opposed to man, but I think he can do both. But you're going to see and hear more about Reshad Wright as the combine wears on. I've got more.
A guy I want to give some love to is A.T. Perry from.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you got more?
No, I mean, I didn't know how many you wanted.
Oh no, I'm gonna go back to you to get like 2 more, but I want to give some love to A.T. Perry, right, from Wake Forest, wide receiver, 6'3". People thought he was 6'5". I thought he was 6'5", but I actually spoke to him and he told me. He told me he was 6'3", 81 receptions last year, almost 1,100 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns, averaged 13.5 yards per catch. I am really, really looking forward to him at the combine. If you don't know the name A.T. Perry, you should get familiar. I think this kid is going to absolutely make some team very happy when they draft him. He is a tall, lanky receiver who has the ability of a small receiver. And what I mean by that is his ability to run routes, to be able to get in and out of his breaks, to be able to create separation at the top, and to be able to get skinny on the sideline and make difficult catches. A lot of those things you see a lot in smaller receivers. He can do that in a guy who's 6'3" and some change. And my comp for him was AJ Green. I just love the very similar body types. Now I know AJ Green is top of the food chain, top of the top, right? But when I say AJ Green, I mean more from a physical standpoint and
Sure.
the things that he can do from an ability standpoint. Who knows if he'll ever get to that level? But keep your eyes out on A.T. Perry. I love A.T. Perry, one of my draft sleepers in this draft.
Oh, I'm a fan of A.T. Perry as well. I'm not quite as courageous as you to whip out AJ Green as a comparison, but he showed me some things. And of course, he's another guy who wasn't originally supposed to be the guy, right? He was a guy, and Donovan Green was the guy, sort of like we would talk about Jalen Hyatt's situation.
Right.
And then with the injury to Donovan Green, now all that volumes going his way, and then also Whiteheart, the tight end, saw an uptick in his volume as well, but it's mostly went to A.T. Perry. And A.T. Perry, as you said, drops his weight better than most, to get in and out of his breaks for a guy who's that tall. And I thought he'd be 6'3.5" or so. So he came in at 6'3 3/8, if I remember correctly, which is almost exactly what I figured. 6'5" guys are almost never 6'5". I mean, I figured this out a very long time ago.
Right. I was naive, y'all. I was on the thing telling Bill, I'm like, he's 6'5", and then I hit him up. I said, AT, tell me, bro, are you 6'5"? He was like 6'3". I was like, oh man. I was like, Bill, you were right. He was like, yeah, I'm always right.
I didn't say I'm always right. Now,
I know I'm messing with you.
I mean, that's what made Calvin Johnson so rare. He came in at 6'5 3/8. I mean, he was over 6'5".
Like he was legit 6'5", and Calvin Johnson.
That almost right because he's Calvin Johnson. But that almost never happened.
Right.
That almost never happened.
So give me two more sleepers. Who else?
I will give you two more. In fact, I can give you more than two more. So I'm going to go back to Fresno State, and I'm going to talk about someone I have a deep and abiding love for, Jalen Cropper Moreno, who is another guy who doesn't blow your mind with pure physical ability, but really understands how to run routes. Really, really, really understands how to run routes. I mean, he attacks zone the way that you should attack zone, right? And then attacks man the way you should attack man. You never see him making a mistake about whether to run through or throttle down. Like he really gets it. He gets it at a super high level as how you're supposed to play. He's a super smart player. He's refined, right? He's almost a finished product. I mean, he really has a really, really, really high level of football IQ. I just think he's a guy with almost zero bust factor. Like he may not become great, but he's got darn near zero bust factor, and I love that. I love a guy that if the
do you have a comp for him?
I do. I keep a comp.
Hey, we love comps on this show. We love comps on this show. Okay,
I do. So for those who remember, I think he's going to end up being better. But do you remember Cecil Shorts from Mount Union?
Yeah, Cecil Shorts. He played for Jacksonville, didn't he?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I think he ends up being a better version of that.
Okay, Cecil Shorts was all right.
But I think he's further along.
Okay.
Developmentally, like Shorts, and Mount Union, terrific program. I mean, we also got Haitian kid
from Mount Union.
Yeah, the other Mount Union wide receiver went to Washington and also the Colts, right?
Pierre Garçon.
Yeah, Pierre Garçon, right?
Yeah.
The other terrific Mount Union, and Nick Sirianni, right? He was more of a possession type, but another Mount Union wide receiver who I watched back in the day.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, I think he could end up having that kind of career.
Okay.
Probably starts out originally as a guy that helps you in the return game and then develops into a guy that becomes, I think, worst case scenario, your wide receiver 3, but I could see him even developing into a 2 in the right situation.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's do one more, and then we're gonna move on to the combine.
Okay.
So give me one more sleeper.
Um, I have to remember if he even got invited. He should have. Let me see. Let me confirm they got invited because I had to double check to make sure this kid got invited. If he didn't, it's a literal. I shouldn't say tragedy, but it's a shame,
Who you talking
especially in a defensive tackle class. It's not super deep. Okay, so there's two guys that got snubbed that I love amongst the defensive tackles.
about?
So I
Okay.
can't talk about them because they didn't get invited. But I'm gonna talk about one guy who did get invited, who I love, and I think people are sleeping on him is Dante Stills.
Okay. Oh,
Dante
Dante Stills.
Stills. I see people ranking him, you know, in the teens amongst their defensive tackle rankings. I feel like I think they're sleeping on him. I think he's going to. Is he undersized? I mean, I say undersized. Is he underweight? Right? Because he's not undersized. He's actually a tall D tackle because he's a little over 6'3". I think 6'3.5", which is fairly tall for a D tackle. The issue is more his weight. He's played throughout his career in the mid to upper 280s. He's one of those few guys that you want to see get heavier, when he shows up at the combine, even if it costs him a little bit of speed and explosiveness, because people are worried, even at 5 tech, that he might not be quite heavy enough. I don't care that much. I feel like he can play in the mid 290s and be just fine. But I think people want to see him get to the low 300s.
Okay.
Just because they're, in their mind, that's what an NFL D tackle looks like. Get over it, people. But I think he's just another beast. Super productive. He can play 4i. He can play 3. He can play the 5. I'm about to say some things, but I just feel like people aren't seeing him correctly.
Right.
He's a much better player than people think.
Hey, we speak our mind here on Draft Nerds. Sometimes y'all not seeing these prospects correctly, and we got a problem with that, right? We're gonna make sure that people know the real deal. This is why you tune in to Draft Nerds, to be able to get the real deal about
if he goes where people are projecting in the 200s. Oh my God, what a steal he's going to end up being. Oh, sweet Jesus, please, Pittsburgh. Because we do like guys like him, right? I mean, we've liked guys like him forever. The Kimo von Oelhoffen and I mean, all those, sort of rangy 5 techs. Gotcha. He could be that for us. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No worries. All right, so this weekend, it's mark your calendars, NFL Combine. Me and Bill are headed out that way. Let's talk about what you expect to see. What are you looking forward to seeing out there in Indy this weekend?
Well, you, right? Look forward to seeing you.
Right.
But beyond that, I'm very intrigued by. I think the offensive tackle group. I may have sold it short. I didn't like it very much at first. Okay. I've done a little further study. Okay. I've moved a couple of guys around. I like it a little bit more than I used to. I still feel like there's not that many day one starters though. Okay. So I'm going to pay extra attention to that group, to the offensive tackle group, and see if maybe there's someone that I have slept on who is able to step in right away and contribute. Because I felt like there's really only a handful of guys who are day one guys.
Gotcha.
But I love being proven wrong. So maybe one of them will prove me wrong.
Okay. I'm looking for, the 40. Everyone's looking forward to seeing the 40. Who's going to run the fastest? Is anyone going to break CJ2K's record? And I really want to see what Bijan Robinson looks like. He said today he's going to do all the drills. He's not sitting out anything. His pro day is actually 3 days after the combine, but he's still prepared to go and do everything. Yeah. And I like that. I love guys who want to compete, and I want to see it. Obviously, the biggest thing is going to be the quarterbacks, right? Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Will Levis. We all know that Bryce Young will not be participating, but those 3 will. And it's going to be very interesting to see how those guys perform, how they throw the football, accuracy, the touch. Also be interesting to see if Anthony Richardson runs the 40. Right. That's been a trend recently. Athletic quarterbacks have not been running the 40. They're like, hey, if I'm fast, I'm fast. Just, I don't need to run the 40. So we'll see what type of advice Anthony Richardson gets. when it comes, from his agent about running the 40 if he decides to do it. Also, looking forward to seeing some of these defensive backs, these corners, see if someone can elevate themselves, right? Someone who can jump up on this draft that we're maybe not talking about enough. The tight ends, really, really freaky tight end class. Really, really freaky tight end class. Can't wait to check those guys out. And yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to seeing it all. Like you said, the trenches is definitely something that you're going to be keeping an eye on, and obviously we're all going to be keeping an eye on because there's a shortage in the NFL on offensive linemen, right? And we need you need tackles, you need depth, you need interior guard centers. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out this weekend at the NFL Combine.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And yeah, obviously I want to see amongst the pass rushers, who helps themselves, because that is what people say, the combine gets too much weight. I think it gets the right amount of weight most of the time. Every once in a while, I'll see somebody, overreact to something at the combine. But most teams have a pretty good idea of who these guys are already.
Right.
They're not like, fans who are just discovering these players.
Right.
So yeah, they usually have done extensive work on. That's why they're here. They've already done the work that these guys should be here.
Right.
So I'll throw out one other thing. There's only one small school quarterback invited, and that's Tyson Bagent.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't dislike him, but I think there's better small school quarterbacks. I'm not sure exactly why he was the one selected.
Right. He won the lottery, man. He won a coin flip.
I guess. I mean, he's a decent athlete he reminds me, remember Bo Levi Mitchell. Sorry, Bo Levi Mitchell from Bo Wallace was Ole Miss. Levi Mitchell from Eastern Washington, who's been tearing it up in the CFL.
Okay.
He reminds me of that guy. I mean, I think that's sort of his ceiling is a really good CFL quarterback, while there's some other guys, whatever. I mean,
did Haener get invited?
Yeah, Haener. Haener is going to be. In fact, I'll tell you exactly how many quarterbacks got invited.
Okay. I figure Haener might be there.
Yeah, it's a slightly smaller than normal. Let me see. Hold on. So it's.
I was telling everyone. I think Haener could be this year's Brock Purdy.
Right. They invited.
Stetson Bennett will be there.
Yeah, Bennett will be there. So it's Bagent, Bennett, Cunningham, Duggan, Haener, Hall, Hooker, who is just going to,
interview,
kiss babies and shake hands.
Right.
Will Levis, Tanner McKee, Aiden O'Connell, Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Clayton Toole, and Bryce Young. That's not a lot of quarterbacks.
Right.
And only one guy who isn't at the FBS level.
Right. I'm looking forward to seeing how my Senior Bowl guys, the risers, the guys who showed out at the Senior Bowl, I want to see if they can continue that momentum into the combine. Guys like Jaden Reed, guys like Tank Dell, guys like who else really showed out? I mean, it's a lot of guys that showed out, but I want to see if the HBCU kids, right? Aubrey Miller
had a great week.
Yep, Aubrey Miller had a great week.
Yes.
Land, right? Isaiah Land. Want to see how he does. Want to see how Musgrave does. He had a really great week.
I
want to see.
Have a great week.
Yeah, I want to see the Maryland tackle. Is it Duncan?
Jalen Duncan.
Jalen Duncan. Want to see him. DeJuan Jones from Ohio State, who really, really showed out. I just want to see if those guys are going to continue to elevate their stock. Riley Moss is another one.
I'm a fan of his too.
Jacorian Bennett is another guy. I want to see what these guys do to add on to what they did at the Senior Bowl, because this pre-draft process is about checking boxes, right? Okay, Senior Bowl, check. All right, NFL Combine, check. Pro Day, check. And now, hopefully, at the end of it all, you've done enough to get yourself drafted high, right? So, looking forward for the Combine, y'all. I can't wait. I can't tell you how excited I am about going out there to check it out. And last but not least, we're gonna close out, Bill, want you to talk about the HBCU Legacy Bowl. As you can see, I'm rocking my Clark Atlanta sweatshirt. I did some undergrad there at Clark Atlanta, did some internships and stuff there. And, rocking the HBCU, man. Tell us about the HBCU Legacy Bowl, what you saw, who you saw, and how you saw it. Break it down to us. I guess give us a few names to be excited about, guys who could potentially get drafted.
Sure. And I'm rocking as my background, my alma mater for undergrad, Norfolk State University. Ooh. And behold, the green and gold.
Yes,
so there were some really good weeks that were had by some players that I'd already liked and I liked even more.
Okay.
I'll do one initial one on offense, one on defense, and they face each other a little bit in some of the one-on-one. Xavier Smith from Florida A&M helped himself, I think, more than anybody.
Okay.
He looked great. He showed they can run routes at a very high level. He can catch the ball, and he's not a big guy, but he can catch the ball outside the frame of his body. He can, go up and high point the ball. He's good after the catch. Other than wanting him to be bigger, there's not much else you could ask for. He's like 5'9.25" and like 176 pounds or something. So not a giant, but he just played really, really well.
Right.
And showed you a little bit of everything. Sorry, I shorted him a little bit. 5'9 1/8, 178.
Oh, you give him one. You give him his extra inch.
I'm gonna give him his eighth. I'm gonna give him his eighth. I'm gonna give him his 178.
Giving that
he clocked at the combine at, who you talk to, but most people agreed it's not like the combine where they've got one time. Right. So all the times are unofficial, and everyone has their own time. Some people had him in the 4.3s. Most people agreed around 4.42, but he's fast. Gotcha. He's explosive and he's fast. And then on the other side of the ball, the man they call Nugget, Juwan Nugget Warren.
Warren from from Jackson State.
Yep.
Yeah. How did he?
From your neck of the woods, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Suitland.
Yep.
So he looked great as well. Once again, other than asking for him to be bigger. I can't imagine there's anything else people could ask. He's another guy. He's right around 5'10" in the 170s. But so some teams see him as more of a nickel than a full-time outside corner. But he's a really good football player. Kamari Averett, who is a big tight end and moves very well. There'll be really two questions. One is the whole, he got into trouble early in his collegiate career before he transferred to Bethune. And, some of that stuff sort of went away with time, but there's going to be questions that have to answer some questions about that, character stuff. And then his age, he's an old guy, he's 25 or turning 25. So, he's going to be, pushing 30 by the time he gets close to the end of his rookie deal. Okay. So that's the, two things with him. I like the running backs a little bit. There's sort of two backs that really stood out to me, one big, one small. The larger of the two is a guy that I've been checking out for some time and, sort of already circled going in. And then my favorite player coming in, I'm going to give you in a second, but I'll walk through it. The bigger back is Emmanuel Wilson from Fort Valley State. Most people had him in the low 4.6s. Some people had him in the high 4.5s. Some people had him in the high 4.6s. But most people settled at around 4.62 to 4.64. 5'10.5", 228. Does not mind contact at all. Sometimes seems to be seeking it out. Think of a very, very slower and a, sort of, like I said, people use the term a very poor man's version of Marshawn, right? Okay. Think of Marshawn Lynch slower. But yeah,
who wasn't really known for speed anyway.
Marshawn was 4.48 coming out.
Oh, wow.
People forget how fast Marshawn was.
I think about Seattle Marshawn when he was more of a bruiser.
But see, to Buffalo Marshawn and Cal Marshawn.
Yeah, when he came out of Cal, yeah.
Marshawn is a guy that got heavier and heavier like each year of his career.
As he got older, right.
He was 219 when he came out. He was well into the 230s towards the end of his career. I love Marshawn to death, but he clearly is not a guy who killed himself in off-season conditioning, I think would be an accurate way to put it.
Mm-mm.
So
Beast
that's
mode.
but he was a beast, man. Such
Yeah, he
his
was.
contact balance.
Yeah. I still see him running down the field against the New Orleans Saints in that playoff game when
And the Saints still do as well.
when he just throwing guys, man. But man, listen,
I'll
this
give you the
was
small. That was the big back. The small back
okay. Small back, yeah.
is Alfonso Graham from Morgan State.
Oh,
Super
Morgan
quick.
State. Yes,
Yep.
sir. Morgan State.
Super quick. You know, he's a water bug. Not great speed, but great quickness.
Mhm.
Obviously, if he had great speed, it would have helped. I liked him a lot. I raved about Xavier Smith, the little receiver. Let me give the big receiver some love. Zach Leslie from
Okay.
NCANT came in at 6'3" and almost 6'4", 6'3" and 3/4, 203.
Okay.
Most people had him in the 4.5s. One outlier had him in the high 4.4s, but 4.5s are fine when you're as big as Zach Leslie, as tall as Zach Leslie is.
Right.
I have to give at least a couple of defensive linemen some love. The player of the game, he had a good week, but he ratcheted it up in the game, was Joshua Pryor. Joshua Pryor went beast mode in the game.
I did see him. Yeah.
Woo, baby.
Yeah.
Came in at 6'3" and a half. Sorry, 6'3" and a half, 242. Tested reasonably well.
Mhm.
Some people had him in the mid 4.7s, some in the high 4.7s. One or two had him in the low 4.8s. 4.77, I think is probably what I think he is, which is fine. It's more about usage of your hands and getting there, gets there quickly enough because you're not running 40 yards if you're hopefully as a defensive end or outside linebacker. But he's got stuff to work with. And my other guy amongst the defensive lineman pass rusher types is Andrew Farmer from Lane. So polished. So, okay, I'm not about to compare him to Terrell Suggs. I'm not going to do that. But, especially with you here.
Right.
But what I will say is the things that make him good are the same kind of things that made Terrell Suggs good.
Okay.
Efficient. Uses his hands extremely well. No wasted motion. Not super big. He came in, like I said, 252, but strong for his size. I think that he's going to probably be a guy that might get drafted late, more likely as an undrafted free agent, but 38-inch vertical, right? 9'10" broad, 4.72, which is to me more than enough. I just think that both those guys deserve to be drafted. And I'd love to see both of them at the combine. Didn't work out that way, but I like both those guys a lot.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you so much. Hey, y'all, look, it concludes the first episode of Draft Nerds podcast. Draft Nerds podcast, man. It's make sure you subscribe, make sure you like. CFB Nation, make sure you download YouTube, subscribe, like, please subscribe, like, go to Twitter, go to CFB Nation, make sure you follow, go to at the has the truth at HAZTHE truth. That's my Twitter handle. Bill, go ahead and drop yours as well.
Yep. So you can find me at ELEVENBRAVO 138. That's at 11 Bravo 138. Or that one's too crowded. 2 handles, no waiting. You can go to at capital B, capital C, ARROLL 138. So for your convenience, I have 2 ready for you. And most of my work shows up on Team MBS Sports.
Also, my content will be on CFB Nation, but it will also be on my YouTube channel, which is Sports Freak. It's Sports Freak. You just type in Sports Freak in YouTube, and you should be able to see it. Just follow, download, subscribe, do all this. You'll see my videos from the Senior Bowl, my interviews, and you'll see all the shows that we have coming up here with CFB Nation. Man, make sure y'all really rocking with CFB Nation because we got a lot of exciting content. I'm a part of 3 shows, and I'm excited for them, right? We have Draft Nerds. I'm also going to have a weekly Ravens flock show, right? All of my Ravens flockers out there, I know you would be excited to catch that. Also, I'm going to have a Pac-12 sports channel, Pac-12, talking about all the Pac-12 teams, co-hosting with my boy Vic. We're going to be doing a Pac-12 podcast talking about all the Pac-12 schools, athletes, prospects, and it's coming out. Players you should be watching this year in the Pac-12. So yeah, it's like it's a lot of things to be excited about. So make sure you tune in weekly. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow, download any of the videos when they are out. So continue to follow us, continue to support us, and also when you see us in them spaces in them Twitter streets, go ahead and hop in. We out, Draft Nerds. Peace.